Hey guys, welcome back to the Mariana Trench. I wanted to talk today to you about an issue and something that I posted about on Facebook today regarding the recent executive order that the president worked with various leaders in the private sector to put forth this initiative called the Hispanic Prosperity Initiative, which is essentially an expansion of several other former executive orders that were signed most recently under the Bush and Obama administrations. And before we get into the meat of the initiative, I have notes here. This is like a new thing I'm trying because I tend to ramble, and so I'm trying to like keep my thoughts like a little bit more structured, so bear with me as I try this. But before we get into the meat of the initiative, I wanted to discuss the issue that I find very dangerous to America as a whole, which is this cancel culture, and how I do not agree with immediate backlash in this specific situation that the CEO of Goya got for working with and praising the president as a builder. Some of you have already seen my Facebook post about this, but there basically what I said is I generally think cancel culture is dangerous to society for several reasons. One, to take the CEO of Goya, for example, I mean, this guy has worked prior to, this executive order and this initiative with various administrations, including the Obama administration. Specifically, he worked with Michelle Obama under, her campaign of, healthy school lunches and all of that to try to, use his company and as, he's a CEO over a food company to work with her to make sure that they can work together to provide, foods and products and resources that are healthy for students who are in underdeveloped schools and all of that. And so my point there is just to say, like, he's done that. He really showed up like in the natural disaster crises that Puerto Rico, experienced due to the hurricanes that they got hit. I mean, he was donating a lot there. He's donating a lot currently for people who are in need due to the COVID pandemic crisis. And I just think that because he took the initiative to work with a sitting president, whether you hate him, whether you like him, whether we voted for him, whether whatever, the fact that he took the initiative to work with a sitting president in order to further an initiative that he believes in and that he has been working on throughout his entire, it seems to me his entire career, he's been, partnering with not only government, but just privately as a private philanthropist for to further aid to people in need, to people who are in crises, to our kids in the communities, and to cancel him because he had nice words to say at the podium with the sitting president that he just worked on an initiative on to further and expand Hispanic prosperity. That to me is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous in my view. And, I wanted to come at this. I mentioned before, like I've had a couple rants videos. And so I really kind of like took my time with this because I didn't want to come off like pissed off. But the fact that we're not even talking about the underlying initiative that he worked on with the president, the fact that it's immediately, oh, let's cancel Goya, let's cancel this, let's cancel that. I have never purchased Goya products. I will be flat out honest with you. I've never purchased any Goya products. And why? It's because I do take pride in making my stuff from scratch. I have a, you know, fresh spices and all of that stuff that I like to use and season and all that stuff with my stuff. But I might be a first time Goya product purchaser because this is ridiculous to me. And this is what I mean when I tell you guys that you have to follow policy and not politics. You have to follow policy and not politics. I put a post up, and it's so weird for me to say this because it's just going to sound weird for me to say this, but I put a post up because there was a commentary that Russell Brand recently stated about how we're underestimating Trump because we basically tend to play at his level, which he masters better than we do at the whole, coming at the personal attacks and playing the, the mudslinging game. He does that better than any of us. He does that way better than any of the freaking politicians that are in office right now. And he's drawing everybody onto his playing field. And if you want to overcome that, I personally think that we have to start looking at policy and we have to start thinking from that perspective. We need to be better than to start the personal attacks and cancel culture on the Twitter, whatever. Like, we need to rise up that, and we need to start looking at policy. Now, do I think that Trump used this and released this initiative at this particular point in time, months before election, because he wants to further his, his political favor with the Hispanic and Latino vote? Absolutely. We would be ridiculous if we thought that that was not part of the political game here. However, that said, I would say we absolutely need to work in every opportunity that we have, not just as Hispanics. And this is, I'm using this executive order as something that I found very disturbing, to cancel somebody who's had a lifelong, and a career-long background and history of working with, whether in the private sector as a private philanthropist or with previous administrations to further good causes, to cancel him just because we didn't like that he was aligning with Trump. We need to get over that. I think that one of the things about the, and I'm going to say this, and this might be controversial, but one of the things about the Hispanic culture that, or, the Latino left or whatever, is that we're too emotional. We're too emotional about things. We get so easily offended, and we this and that, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to cancel everything because do we even read the initiative? Do we even care about the initiative? Do we even care about what we're trying to do here to further this, executive order that was started under several presidents, including Bush and Obama in most recent years? And my questions when I heard that this was going to be signed this year under this administration was, what improvements have we made since Obama signed this, since Bush signed this? Why is it still something that is continued to be expanded on? And what is the progress that we've been making under each administration? That was my first question, and that's the questions that we should be thinking about and asking as Hispanics, regarding something like this. Secondly, I talked about affirmative action the other day and how I kind of wrestle with that, because I would prefer something like this for not only Hispanics but underdeveloped communities, regardless of whether Hispanic, Black, white, whatever. I would prefer that we start there if the government's going to have their hand in something at a fundamental platform like education, like K through 12 education, and see what are the solutions that we can put there so that we can have people who are undergoing economic difficulty to get on the same playing field as other people who are in more privileged economic status, so that when you get to college and you get to wherever, you don't have to worry about race being a factor or anything being a factor. You will have those tools made available to you, and you will set the playing field earlier on in the process, so that when you get to the point where you're applying for colleges, you're that good. You're on the same plane. You're not lacking any of the tools that other people who go to private schools or who go to whatever are you have over you, and we can get on the right playing field sooner. That's the type of thing that I would, not just for Hispanics, but for everybody who's in an underdeveloped or in an economic community that is not prosperous, and they're having difficulty trying to get out of the cycle of poverty and all of these things. These types of opportunities are what I would prefer, rather than treating it later in the game with something like affirmative action in either the college world or in the professional world. If we start earlier and we start leveling out the playing field earlier with opportunities like this, where the government has already provided, has its hand and has the responsibility in a public education setting to work on these issues, let's get at it sooner. This is the exact type of thing that I would expect, and would welcome and further for not just the Hispanic community, but for all communities and all people who are experiencing an economic gap in their social status and in whatever. So to me, I just don't understand why we would jump on this guy who's working with the sitting president and cancel him when we haven't even looked at the underlying initiative. Now, this initiative puts forth several objectives, including things like the focus on educational school choice for Hispanic Americans in underdeveloped and lower economic communities, giving them the ability to choose charter schools instead of their district schools, for example, improving vocational schools, which we don't even hear of anymore. And that's something that is just like, yeah, not everything needs to be a 4-year degree. We can build not only educational prosperity, educational opportunity in a vocational setting, but build wealth as well by the fact that you're coming out of school. I mean, I'm still dealing with law school loans. Like, I know firsthand what that means to be struggling to make sure that all of my debt is cleared out, because now I'm just focusing on that my house mortgage and finishing off my law school loan. Like, that's a hard truth that I experience as somebody who has gone through this, trying to make it and pull myself up and trying to get, make opportunity for myself and do all that stuff, but having to rely on loans in order to get where I need to be. And so we need to focus on, what other opportunities we have. I have the great privilege of going to law school, and I wouldn't give that for the world, but I wouldn't consider myself more successful than, for example, my brother, who did not go to college or further his education post K through 12. However, he has no debt, and he's got a great job, and he's got a beautiful family. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we have to stop thinking about prosperity and economic advancement in terms of just getting a 4-year degree or just going to law school. Those are great options, and they're absolutely things that we should shoot for in our communities. But we also need to look at other options that are equally as effective, equally, create, not equal, but similar, unique wealth statuses for Hispanics, for people who are or anybody who's in an underdeveloped economic situation. And we need to really push that, those diverse options for everybody in our communities. So I kind of went up on a tangent there, but what really I want to say is, like, the initiative also provides apprenticeships and internships for Hispanics in lower economic communities. So once you're coming out of, whether you're a vocational school, 4-year degree, having the opportunity to intern somewhere to get like the real world experience, that's also very important. And that's something that this initiative furthers. So I have questions about that, right? So we should be reading the initiative. We should be looking at what's going on here. What does this mean? How is this different from the Obama administration? How is it different from the Bush administration? Do we agree with the underlying ways in which we're trying to further our communities? Or is it, is there some tension there? And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that the educational school choice for Hispanic Americans in underdeveloped lower economic communities, that's controversial under this initiative. Why? Because the school choice expansion includes opportunities to send kids to charter schools, right? To have them be able to go to charter school. We have a great charter school program here in Arizona called Basis, and it like literally is like one of the best programs in Arizona, and we ranked like number 1 in the US. And I was looking into this because I was actually going to teach there before I got my job at American Express. It was kind of like, and before I got my bar license, before I actually passed the bar, I was looking for work. And so I was actually going to teach her, and I did my research, and it was like an excellent school. They teach Mandarin, they teach, literature, Greek mythology at like in the K through 12 program. And I thought that was like so impressive. Now, one of the things that's controversial about this is that it's funded, these are almost like private type schools, but they're funded publicly, and they are devoid of a religious component. So, for example, like under the Obama administration, you had vouchers, right? Like you had the voucher program that was kind of controversial because it basically was giving DC school kids the opportunity to take a voucher and then put it towards any private school that they wish. And a lot of them were religious schools. And so that created a conflict because of the whole constitutional, the Establishment Clause, and the government basically putting their hand in to give opportunities for kids basically to go to Catholic school or Christian school or whatever. And so that was a controversial for several reasons, including that reason, but also because, it didn't really solve the problem of our lack of public education standards. Like they're substandard across the nation, and instead of dealing with that core issue, which is what a lot of the teachers unions are saying, like we need to deal with that issue rather than plucking out students from that problem and then placing them into a private school, or in this case a charter school. So when we start thinking about whether or not we agree with some of the things in this initiative, those are the kinds of questions that I think that we need to be asking. And I get it. It's not easy to navigate all of these policies and to see, what do I agree with, what not. I don't, a lot of people are probably saying, I don't have time to read this. I don't have time to read this. However, my point of this whole thing is that instead of bashing whatever it is that you got offended by some guy who said whatever without even understanding what he was doing at the White House, why he was there, what his initiative was, what he was trying to further for the Latino community, for the Hispanic community. You're focusing on 2 sentences that he said at the podium. That's outrageous to me. That is ludicrous in my view. And the more that we keep furthering that type of rhetoric, we're just going to stay exactly where we are. We're never going to further our community, our people, Latinos, people who are in, situated in underdeveloped economic situations, who are in communities where they're trying to build wealth and they can't because they're just stuck in the cycle. The more that we focus on the freaking clips and what the next thing is we're going to cancel because somebody aligned on a policy issue with Trump, we need to get over it. We need to get over it. I'm sorry. And you know what? I didn't want to go and start playing politics and whatever, but it's just getting annoying. And I didn't vote for the guy. A lot of us didn't, but he's the guy in office. And this whole, he's not my president mentality, to me, does nothing. It does nothing to further the nation. You yourself are just going to be contributing to a political rhetoric that stagnates our country, stagnates our communities, and stagnates our opportunity to grow and to develop and push forward, push agendas and causes and things forward. And you know what? I've never purchased anything from Goya before in my life, but I'm going to start doing that because I think this guy, you know what? He rubs me the right way. And I think everybody should be backing him. And I was really pissed at Lin-Manuel because I love him. And even though I disagree with him, I'm still going to go right now on my Saturday and watch or listen to Hamilton because I love it that much. And I think he did such a great job of storytelling on that. But I had just offended him 2 days before this whole thing happened when people were starting to try to cancel him because he didn't fix slavery in his freaking Broadway musical. That's where we're going to start canceling Lin-Manuel because he didn't fix slavery in a 2.5-hour Broadway musical. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is just getting out of hand. And I made a huge long post saying, you know what? He took a story of the founding of our nation, and he made every immigrant and every person of color and every demographic he represented in that musical. And if we're going to start calling out, oh, he didn't deal with slavery right, and he didn't do this and he didn't do that, then you know what? We really need to start thinking broader than that. And I can bring up all the other things that we should be talking about, like the fact that colonialism is basically, genocide of the Native Americans, of Hispanics, of Mexican brown people who have been here since before England ever got anything out of us. And we want to focus on the fact that he didn't fix slavery in his 2.5 hour long musical. It, I have an uncle who um, he retired military, and he used to tell me that one of his superiors, um, he's a Green Beret, like former military, retired. Um, he used to say that one of his superiors used to always say, like, when he would ask a question, like, hey, how do we do this? Like, how are we going to move in? Whatever. And she would say, do you see this box? Think outside it. And I feel like that's what we need to do. We need to start thinking outside the box. This is just getting ridiculous where, oh, I'm offended or on this and all that and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we're still bringing up things that were said 3 years ago instead of looking at some underlying issue or some underlying initiative that a private CEO is working with the administration to further our communities and our cause. And that's why you're going to cancel them. It's just, I understand, and I have made prior videos about the leadership in our nation and how Trump is just not cutting it, and how the nation is devoid, I think, of strong leadership, of good leadership. But if all you're looking for is a diplomatic figure to make you feel better, without looking at underlying policies that honestly are not that different from the Obama administration, at least, especially on issues of Latin Americans and Hispanic Americans and Mexican Americans, they're not that different. They're really not. So I would suggest that we start focusing on policy and not politics. And I absolutely think the whole point to this is that I absolutely think everybody should take the opportunity they can with any sitting administration, whether it's whoever it is, and further change and further prosperity and further progress. If Congress did that, which is literally their job is to push forward initiatives and causes and laws in partnership and coordination with the executive. That's literally their job. But nobody wants to do that because, oh, I don't want, I'm this and I'm against Trump and I'm blah, blah, blah. So nobody's willing to negotiate and meet in the middle. Then you're not doing your job. And I hope people pay attention to that. And when voting comes around, that's part of the process, because everybody focuses on the president and nobody's focusing on the congressman. And the congressmen, in my view, are the people who are fucking up. So that's long-winded and whatever, but I just wanted to talk about that because I was very upset with the immediate backlash, and I was very upset with Lin-Manuel. I still love him to death, and I still, and that's what I mean, is that I can disagree with everything that he just, the whole participation in this cancel culture crap that he participated in. But am I going to cancel him? No, I'm not, because we need to think broadly and outside the box here. Come on. Get it together. I just feel like we just need to get it together, and I'm so irritated about just so many things. And again, I just feel like a lot of this is just furthering our own political agendas. You really want to compare the Trump administration to the Obama administration? Yeah, he's an ass, and he says a lot of things about Hispanic Americans, but you know what? His policies aren't that different from Obama. And you know who the only one who questioned him was Jorge whoever from Telemundo during the debates, questioned Biden about, are you upset about all the deportations that happened under the Obama administration? Do you regret that? And of course, he didn't answer the question. And so he asked him again after his long-winded whatever answer. He answered him again. You guys need to look into that. The policies are not that different. And when you start following policy instead of politics, you'll be surprised. You will be surprised by how taken back you are about the virtual differences between these two presidents. Now, DACA is a huge issue in terms of immigration reform. However, the fact that Trump pulled that away, I think, was a test more for Congress than it was a removal of DACA protections. And that's a hardball way to make things move, and it didn't work. It didn't work. Congress didn't do anything about it, you know. But we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. And now he's talking about like, oh, I'm gonna, create a pathway for citizens. You can't do that, but we'll see what he does. We'll see what he does. I mean, I think the current DACA protections are unconstitutional anyways, so why not further them if they're already illegal? Might as well, push them through to the extent that you can. But anyways, that's getting into a whole other thing. But I'm just saying, like, cancel culture is dumb. It's just dumb. I'm sorry. It's a dumb thing. And, if you do your research and you really are like, man, this guy sucks, and, yeah, I'm just not going to support his product or his whatever, then fine. But even this takes me back to when I had made a video about Colin Kaepernick and how, like, I kind of saw the light and I was like, damn, like, he was trying to point to something and I was really tone deaf to that, and I was like inconvenienced and kind of just being shitty about it. But even when he partnered with Nike and I was so pissed about the whole thing, I wasn't gonna go stop wearing my Nikes. Like, really? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just, the whole thing just is dumb to me, and I feel like we need to be a little bit more aware of what we're doing, and we need to look at underlying things a little bit more closely before we just like let people on Twitter, whether they're celebrities, whether it's Trump, whether it's a politician, make up our minds for us. Like, that's, I think, the root of the issue that's bothering me. It's just like, really? Like, just because so-and-so is saying, oh, this and that, whatever, we're going to cancel Goya and goyaway, we're all of a sudden just behind it without even making up our own minds about what the hell actually happened and doing a little bit of 5-minute reading to see, like, wait, what happened here? What went on? What is this? What was he even doing at the White House? Like, what happened here? But no, just, oh, he said this, and so I'm done. That's just, if that's the way that you're going to think, I can guarantee you Trump's going to win, because he plays that game better than any of us. He does. So if that's what's going to suck you in to his world, and we're not going to focus on policy and what's actually going to move this country forward, then hail another 4 years to Trump, because that's where we're headed, in my view. Check out the stuff on Instagram. Check out Russell Brand. He made, and I know it's really weird to say this because we have very different solutions and very different ways about the way that we think the country should further and progress. However, I agree a lot with him in his articulation of the problems that are currently facing America. And he made a very interesting video about Trump and how we're underestimating him. And I fully agree. And he also makes a really great point about how we don't really want something different. We just want a diplomatic figure whose policies are probably not going to be that much, significantly change enough. But because they're going to be nicer and more diplomatic and probably more well-spoken, we're going to feel better about ourselves, because we can then say, oh, we dealt with Trump. And I thought that was a really interesting point, and it was something that I fully agree with. And on the other side, there's somebody who I completely agree with, who, even though completely different, again, solutions about how we should go forward, Sean King. I have been actually listening to Sean King a lot about his detachment from the Democratic Party, which we all know I completely agree with that. Looking at some of the underdeveloped, impoverished communities are all led by Democrats. A lot of them are Black, a lot of them are Latino, and we voted for them. And he made a good point, and a lot of people were, thought that was very controversial. And now his view and his plan is to go more of a Bernie Sanchez sort of democratic socialist vision of where the country will go. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but again, his articulation of the problems that we face, and our this notion that the Democratic Party is going to save us from our lives, and is going to save us from our lives. No, they're not. They've been in power for a long time in a lot of the areas that we've continued to see issues, and nothing changes. So we need to start thinking outside the box now. Whether you want to go the Democratic Socialist route, which I would not, and I disagree with. You want to go more conservative route, which is where I am. We need to think differently about who's in power, the parties that dominate, and what we're going to do about that, and how we're going to start thinking outside the box, because I think that's exactly what we need to be doing right now. None of this is working. And if you want to go with your cancel culture, whatever, then good luck, because it's going to just result in another 4 years for Trump, in my view. So that's all I have to say. Little ranty again. I had my notes and I totally just went off on my tangent. What else? I think that's it. I think I want to make a video about resources to help us further our personal education about things. I think how to create wealth, how to get out of debt is a huge thing. How to just certain things. I mean, there's some people that I follow in terms of, especially the economic wealth thing. I think that's a huge thing. How to start savings, how to start simple things like that I didn't even know how to do. I got out of college and I made a lot of mistakes in terms of school loans and that front. And now, it's taken me a long time. I'm 35 years old, and I'm barely starting to finally be okay, I have no, I'm almost done with my debt. And that's a long road from college to here. I had partial scholarships, but not everything was paid for. And so, when we have a house and we have this and all this stuff, it's just I really want to start focusing on clearing my debt. And that's such a huge thing, I think, that is not valued in Hispanic communities and Black communities. We don't have that education. And I'm going to put some links down to you about a person who I forget his name, but I listened to him a lot, and he recently partnered with Dave Ramsey, and he's Black American, and he has these same types of issues. He talks a lot about this, about Black America and their lack of education on creating wealth within the communities and stuff. And so I've been really listening to him. I think he's got a lot of great things to say, and I identify a lot with him in terms of how he wants to further educate the Black America. I would love to do that. I would love to see more of that, from way more prominent figures than me, who are, teaching our, Hispanic kids and stuff how to think further, not just about how to build wealth and how to save and all that stuff, but how to leverage scholarships, leverage grants, leverage all of these things that are available to us, so that we can set the playing field a little bit more evenly and prosper without having to get into debt, without having to be ill-equipped when we go to college or trade school or whatever career choice or life path we choose. And so I'll put some links down about that, because I really I appreciated being introduced to him through Dave Ramsey. And so anyways, a little ranty again, but I just wanted to talk about that and put something up about cancel culture and how it's just dangerous, and how I think we need to be the ones that are smarter than that, because politicians won't. They're never going to be, and whether it's Trump, whether it's whoever, they're going to play that game all day with you. And until we learn how to think for ourselves and think outside the box and do our own research and make up our own minds, we're going to be stuck relying on politicians to do that for us, and we can't let that happen. So yeah, that's all. And leave questions down in the description, and have a good one. Bye.